Dear students, today's class is on the anatomy of the nose. At the end of this presentation, you must be able to describe the formation, blood supply and nerve supply of the external nose as well as the nasal cavity. You must also be able to explain the formation of the nasal septum that divides the nasal cavity into two parts. You will also be able to describe the structures that are present on the lateral wall of the nasal cavity. You must be able to identify the openings of the paranasal sinuses found in the nasal cavity, and also you should be able to explain the distribution of the olfactory and respiratory mucosa in the nasal cavity. All of you know nose is the organ of respiration as well as olfaction, and it warms and humidifies the inspired air. The nose, it also removes and traps the pathogens and particulate matter from the inspired air. The nasal cavity, it also drains the paranasal sinuses and the lacrimal ducts. The nose, it is divided into two regions, the external nose and the nasal cavity. Both these parts are again divided into right and left half by a septum, which is called the nasal septum. These are the different parts of the external nose. As you can see, the root of the nose, it is also called a radix. You can see the base of the nose, which is the lower end, and on the base we have the two nostrils. Now both the sides of the nose, they meet in the midline, which is called the dorsum of the nose or the bridge of the nose. Lower end of the bridge of the nose is called the tip of the nose, and the lower flared lateral part is called the ala of the nose. So these are the different parts of the external nose. The external nose, it is made up of bones as well as cartilages. So the bones that take part in the formation of the external nose are the nasal bone, the frontal process of the maxilla, the nasal part of the frontal bone. So this is the bony part of the external nose, and the cartilaginous part is formed by the lateral nasal cartilage, major alar cartilage and the minor alar cartilage. I hope you can identify the different bones and the cartilages in the picture. As for the blood supply of the external nose, the skin of the external nose, it is supplied by the dorsal nasal artery and the external nasal artery, which are branches of the ophthalmic and the anterior ethmoidal artery. The septum and the alar cartilages, they receive additional blood supply from the angular artery and the lateral nasal artery, which are branches of the facial artery. Thus, you can see that branches from both external and internal carotid arteries supply the nose. Let's see the nerve supply of the external nose. The skin of the root, dorsum and upper portion of the side of the nose is supplied by the supratrochlear and infratrochlear branches of the ophthalmic nerve. The lateral aspects of the nose are supplied by the infraorbital nerve, which is a branch of the maxillary nerve, and the skin over the dorsum up to the tip of the nose is supplied by the external nasal branch of anterior ethmoidal nerve. Now coming to the nasal cavity. The nasal cavity, as you know, it extends from the nostrils in front to the posterior nasal aperture, which is also called the choana, lying behind. And the choana is the region where the nose opens into the nasopharynx. The nasal vestibule is the area of the nasal cavity that lie just inside, lateral to the nostril. So we have two vestibules on either side, right and left. The nasal cavity, it presents with a medial wall, a lateral wall, floor and roof. Now coming to the medial wall of the nasal cavity, this medial wall is also called the nasal septum. And this nasal septum or medial wall, it divides the nasal cavity into two halves, right and left. The nasal septum, it is made up of, as you can see in the diagram, the upper part, it is formed by the perpendicular plate of ethmoid, and the anterior part, it is formed by the septal cartilage, which is also known as the quadrangular cartilage, and the lower part of the nasal septum, it is formed by the vomer. So this is the composition of the nasal septum found in the midline, dividing the nasal cavity into right and left. As for the floor and roof of the nasal cavity, as you can see, the floor of the nasal cavity, it is formed by the upper surface of the hard palate. And the roof of the nasal cavity, it is narrow and it is formed anteriorly by the nasal and frontal bones. You look at the diagram below. So anteriorly the roof is formed by the nasal and frontal bones. In the middle the roof is formed by the cribriform plate of the ethmoid bone, and posteriorly the roof is formed by the body of the sphenoid. So this is about the roof and floor of the nasal cavity. Now coming to the lateral wall of the nasal cavity. The lateral wall of the nasal cavity, it is irregular. Unlike the medial wall, which is smooth, the lateral wall is irregular and it presents with many bony projections and depressions. So this lateral wall, in the upper part, it is formed by the nasal surface of the labyrinth of the ethmoid bone. The posterior part is formed by the perpendicular plate of the ethmoid bone, and the lower and anterior part of the lateral wall, it is formed by the nasal surface of the maxilla. So this is the lateral wall, as you can see in the picture. The lateral wall, I said it presents with some elevations and depressions. These elevations, they are, or projections found on the lateral wall, they are called the nasal concha or turbinate. So on the lateral walls on the right side as well as on the left side, we have three projections of bones which is called the nasal concha or turbinate. And these turbinates or concha, they are named according to their position as the superior, middle and inferior concha. The inferior concha, it is an independent bone, while the middle and superior concha arise from the medial surface of the ethmoidal labyrinth. So this nasal concha, why they are present? They serve to increase the surface area of the nasal cavity. Now below each concha there is a passage or space, and that is called the meatus. So accordingly we have superior meatus below the superior concha, middle meatus below the middle concha, and the inferior meatus below the inferior concha. So these are the structures we get on the lateral wall of the nasal cavity. 3 nasal turbinate or concha and 3 meatuses. Now what is this sphenoethmoidal recess? Sphenoethmoidal recess is the area above the superior concha. I hope you can identify the area above the superior concha. So this sphenoethmoidal recess, it receives the opening of the sphenoidal air sinus. In the picture you can see a probe passing from the sphenoid bone into the sphenoethmoidal recess. So if I ask you where does the sphenoidal air sinus open, it opens into the sphenoethmoidal recess, which is found on or located on the upper part of the superior turbinate. Now coming to the superior meatus, I told you meatus is the space which lies below the concha. So superior meatus is the space which lies below the superior concha. It is the shortest and shallowest of the three meatuses, and remember it receives the opening of the posterior ethmoidal air sinus. Now coming to the middle meatus of the nose, the middle meatus, obviously it will lie below the middle concha. As you can see in the diagram, the middle meatus is present with a swelling near about the center, which is called the ethmoidal, bulla ethmoidalis. And this bulla ethmoidalis, it is formed by the middle ethmoidal air sinuses. And these middle ethmoidal air sinuses, they open on the upper border of the bulla ethmoidalis. Just below the bulla ethmoidalis, you can see a curved groove. That curved groove is called the hiatus semilunaris. So it lies below the bulla ethmoidalis, anterior to and below the bulla ethmoidalis. The anterior end of the hiatus semilunaris, it leads into a funnel-shaped channel called the infundibulum. And into the infundibulum, the frontonasal duct from the frontal air sinus open. In other words, the frontal air sinus, it drains into the anterior part of the anterior part of the hiatus semilunaris. On the other hand, the anterior ethmoidal air sinus, they open in the anterior part of the hiatus semilunaris, just behind the opening of the frontal air sinus. And the maxillary air sinus opens into the posterior part of the hiatus semilunaris. So you can see how important the middle meatus is, because it has the opening of many paranasal air sinuses. It has the opening of the middle ethmoidal air sinus. It also receives the opening of the frontal air sinus, anterior ethmoidal air sinus, and the maxillary air sinus. The atrium of the middle meatus, it is a shallow depression just in front of the middle meatus above the vestibule. Now the atrium of the middle meatus, it is limited above by a faint ridge which is called the agar nasi, and it is a fold of mucous membrane. The agar nasi runs downwards and forwards from the anterior border of the middle concha. I am sure you can identify the atrium in the picture. Just above the vestibule, that depression would be the atrium of the middle meatus. Now coming to the inferior meatus. The inferior meatus, it lies below the inferior concha, and it is the largest of the three meatuses. Shortest was the superior meatus. So inferior is the largest, and it receives the opening of lower end of the nasolacrimal duct at the junction of anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3. And this opening of the nasolacrimal duct, it is guarded by a valve called the Hasner's valve. So though largest, the inferior meatus receives only the opening of the nasolacrimal duct, and the middle meatus, it is important because it receives the opening of 4 paranasal air sinuses. Now let us see the mucous membrane lining the nasal cavity. So this mucous membrane that lines the nasal cavity is rich with blood vessels, and these blood vessels, they enable the nose to warm and humidify the incoming air quickly. The area above the superior concha, it is lined with olfactory mucous membrane, which contains the nerve endings sensitive to reception of smell. In the picture, the yellow colored area, that is the area lined by olfactory mucous membrane. And the rest of the nasal cavity, it is lined by respiratory mucous membrane, which is lined by pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium with goblet cells. The presence of mucus on the surface traps the foreign particles, while the cilia help in moving the contaminated mucus posteriorly towards the nasopharynx, where it is swallowed and digested by the gastric juice. The vestibule, it is lined by modified skin, and it has short coarse hairs called the vibrissae. Now coming to the nerve supply of the nasal cavity. The nasal cavity receives innervation from branches of olfactory nerve, ophthalmic nerve and maxillary nerve. The nerve supply, it can be divided into two: spatial and general sensory innervation. Spatial innervation refers to the ability of the nose to smell, and this is carried out by the olfactory nerves. Branches of the olfactory nerves from the olfactory mucous membrane ascend through the cribriform plate of the ethmoid bone to the olfactory bulb in the brain. As for the general sensory innervation to the septum and the lateral wall of the nose, the nasopalatine nerve, which is a branch of the maxillary nerve, it supplies greater part of the nasal septum and the mucosa of the roof of the nose. The nasociliary nerve and the anterior ethmoidal nerve, which are branches of the ophthalmic nerve, they supply the mucosa of the nasal cavity. The anterior superior alveolar nerve, which is a branch of the infraorbital nerve, which in turn is a branch of the maxillary nerve, supplies the lower anterior part of the nasal cavity as shown, and the nasal branches and the anterior palatine branches from the pterygopalatine ganglion supply the posterior part of the nasal cavity. So this is the nerve supply of the septum as well as the lateral wall of the nose. Coming to the blood supply, the sphenopalatine artery is the largest blood vessel supplying the nasal cavity. Sphenopalatine artery is the terminal branch of the maxillary artery, and it supplies the nasal cavity via its two branches, the posterior lateral nasal branch and the posterior septal branch. Just look at the picture and try to identify these branches. The posterior lateral nasal branch supply a large part of the lateral wall and septum, and it anastomoses anteriorly with the branches of the anterior and posterior ethmoidal arteries. As for the posterior septal branch, it supplies the nasal septum and anastomoses with the terminal branch of the greater palatine and superior labial artery. Besides the sphenopalatine artery, the nasal cavity is also supplied by the greater palatine artery, a branch from the maxillary artery, which supplies the anterior part. Then branches also comes from septal branch of the superior labial artery and the lateral nasal artery, and these are branches of the facial artery, and they supply the lower part of the anterior half. And branches also come from the anterior and posterior ethmoidal arteries, and these anterior and posterior ethmoidal arteries are branches of the ophthalmic artery, and they enter the nose from orbit and supply the roof and upper part of the lateral wall and the nasal septum. Now what is this Little's area or Kesselbach's area? Little's area, it's an area at the antero-inferior part of the nasal septum which contains anastomosis between the branches of sphenopalatine artery, greater palatine artery, anterior ethmoidal artery and septal branches of the superior labial arteries. So these arteries, they anastomose at the antero-inferior part of the nasal septum, and that area is called the Little's area or Kesselbach's area. In fact, just remember that the sphenopalatine artery, it is also known as the artery of epistaxis. And what is epistaxis? It is the medical term for nasal bleeding. Okay, so since the Little's area contains a large number of blood vessels anastomosing with one another, so this is a site from where frequent nasal bleeding may occur, and that nasal bleeding is called the epistaxis. The veins in a nasal cavity, they begin as a rich plexus in the submucosa and accompany the corresponding arteries and ultimately drain into the facial vein, ophthalmic vein and the sphenopalatine vein. As for the lymphatic drainage, lymphatics from the vestibule drain into the submandibular lymph nodes, whereas the lymphatics from the rest of the nasal cavity drain into the upper deep cervical lymph nodes through the retropharyngeal nodes. So coming to the applied anatomy, epistaxis. So I have already told you epistaxis is the medical term for nasal bleeding. So epistaxis may occur due to some trauma to the nose, or it may occur following some systemic diseases like hypertension. Then comes rhinorrhea, it means a running nose. So rhinorrhea or running nose, it may occur due to some allergic condition. As we know that all the paranasal sinuses open into the nasal cavity, so any allergic infection of the paranasal sinuses will release its secretion into the nasal cavity, causing the rhinorrhea. Rhinitis means inflammation of the nasal mucosa. This could again be due to some allergic reactions or following some infection by bacteria or viruses. Now, allergic rhinitis may lead to hypertrophy of the mucosa over the inferior nasal concha, leading to blockage of the concerned nasal cavity. So, in minor hypertrophy, it could be treated with conservative treatment, but if the hypertrophy is large, causing blockage of the nasal cavity, then it might need some surgical intervention. Anosmia means loss of smell, and it may occur due to damage to the olfactory nerve cells. There is one condition called CSF rhinorrhea. So, if due to some trauma, if the cribriform plate of the frontal bone is damaged or broken, then the broken fragments might tear the meninges covering the brain, and this tear in the meninges may cause the cerebrospinal fluid to leak through the cribriform plate into the nasal cavity. So that condition is called CSF rhinorrhea. There is a condition called deviated nasal septum or DNS. As you can see in the picture, in this condition, the nasal septum, which divides the nasal cavity into right and left half, it is deviated to one side, and this DNS may be present at birth or it may be caused at a later stage due to injury to the nose. DNS is often responsible for repeated attacks of common cold, allergic rhinitis, and sinusitis. And the treatment of the DNS depends on the severity of the deviation, and very often surgical correction needs to be done by a procedure called the septoplasty. Now, which is a dangerous area of the nose? You have to know that. So it is the area just above the superior concha. That means this is the sphenoethmoidal recess area, which is lined by the olfactory mucous membrane. Why this is called the dangerous area of the nose? Because we know that this area contains olfactory nerve fibers that pass into the cranial cavity through the cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. So any infection in this area can easily enter the cranial cavity through the cribriform plate and cause meningitis, which could be life-threatening. That's why this area is called the dangerous area of the nose. So the nasal polyps, these are soft, painless, non-cancerous growths which arise from the mucous membrane lining the nasal cavity or even lining the sinuses. So they arise from the mucous membrane. As you can see in the picture, the nasal polyps, they hang down like teardrops or grapes, and they result from chronic inflammation of the mucous membrane. So these nasal polyps, if small, they can be treated by conservative treatment, but larger polyps which block the nasal cavity may require surgical correction. The polypectomy may be needed. Thank you.